And welcome everybody. I'm delighted to be in the company of the great stress master, Ches Moulton. Stress is something that we're all seeing an awful lot of recently, particularly in the last couple of months. I think we would all agree. But one thing for sure, this weekend I watched something on television and took great admiration in watching it. Was a fantastic rugby match, which was Australia and New Zealand. But one thing I noted was the crowd that were in attendance. Everybody was there holding a beer in their hand. And I looked at my wife and I said, that's normal. And I just saw the first normal coming back into life again. So I did watch with great glee a fantastic rugby match. I also watched Donald Trump being dismantled, which was another great joy for myself personally. But anyway, I won't get political. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Ches. He's been a member of BITA for many years now, has gone around to set up chapters with myself in many areas and has seen the organization grow. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the Stress Master, Ches Moulton.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to spend some time with you this afternoon, and I'm grateful that you've decided to come and spend some time with me as well. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to give you some information that will help you in your life this afternoon and in your career. Without further ado, let's just get started because it's jam-packed. I've got more to tell you than I've got time to tell you. So let's get going here. There we go. Just a little bit about me first. Outside of my BETA credentials, I'm a certified stress management consultant. My background is psychotherapy. I also have some certificates in hypnotherapy. I coach. I'm a therapist. I've been a consultant and a counselor for almost 30 years. I started back in my native country in Canada. Then I did what I'm doing in one form or another since then throughout the West Indies when I lived in Barbados for about 17 years. I've been here in the UK for 9 years. I've got clients. I've been in Africa. I go down to Lagos a few times a year for the last couple of years. And I've been in the Middle East and had speaking engagements and clients down there as well. So that's a little bit about me, and if you're still awake, then let's just carry on. Appreciate you very much. Now, the goals of this presentation. What I want to do is I want to bring your awareness to what stress is, and I want to show you how you can use stress for success in your life and in your career. And I'm also going to give you some tips and techniques on how to be able to lower your stress and then manage that lower level of stress going forward. That's what we're going to do in the next 45 or 50 minutes. Now, before we get too far deep into it, let's look at some of the numbers. Now, I realize that in the last 7, 8, 9 months since the pandemic has hit, there's hardly a sector in the economy where the stress levels aren't literally just through the roof. I mean, a lot of them were unusually high and unmanageably high to start with. But since the pandemic has come into the country, everything's just off the charts. What I'm going to show you is something that more represents, shall we say, pre-COVID. So back in the what we would have called the normal days, as Paul referred to them earlier. This is research that was gleaned from a poll taken by YouGov and the Mental Health Foundation back in 2018. So back at the beginning of this year, it was still considered to be relevant. Now, here we see that 16% of adults had said they had self-harmed as a result of stress. What I found alarming about this myself is not so much the division between the genders, female and male. What I found disturbing was the high level of percentage of young people, the 18 to 24-year-olds, in comparison to any other generation, particularly the ones who are 55 years and over. That I found that a bit alarming, to be honest with you. Here's another one. 1/3 of adults experience suicide feelings as a result of stress, according to the survey in 2018. And again, we look at that category there, the younger generation, 18 to 24-year-olds, who reported at 39%. And what we want to take a moment to pause and think about is that if you find these numbers alarming, put it into context that these are the numbers that we get back from people who were confident enough to be able to to be able to report this, to be able to admit to this. So I'm sure the numbers and all of these numbers are probably a little bit higher because there's some people out there who might not have who want to weigh in on this when asked. Now this is the one that's staggering. Look, 3/4 of the population, of the adult population in this country, felt so stressed and overwhelmed that they're unable to cope. I mean, that's something else. 83% of 18 to 24-year-olds and 65%, not far behind. So 2/3 of people in that mature to older generation feel so stressed and overwhelmed that they're unable to cope. They have no coping skills. So that's a little bit of the numbers, just to put some context to what it is I'm talking about this afternoon. But before we go any farther again, then let's put a definition to this, because I find that people use the word stress incorrectly. I hear a lot of people, as I do myself from time to time, because I've been programmed. It's over 30 years. It's still hard to get out of the programming sometimes. But what I find is that people use the word stress as a verb. So, we talk about being stressed out, or having stressed, or getting stressed. Stress is actually a noun. And stress is something that is a part of who we are. It's a system, it's a mechanism that we're born with inside of us as humans. We can't get rid of it, and we wouldn't want to. It's something that's there that will kick in and help save us when our life is in danger, or we have high levels of perceived stress, perceived threat. Then that stress mechanism kicks in, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But at the end of the day, when all of that kicks off and the stress level goes high, what happens is that demand starts to outstrip supply. And when that happens, that's when bad things happen. And then that's when our inability to cope, as we saw earlier in some of the stats, that's when our inability to cope kicks in. And as I say, bad things start to happen. So let's take a look at this first. There are two types of stress, and there are only two types of stress. Now, one is that, as I say, that built-in mechanism, that survival mechanism that we have. I'm going to come on to that in just a minute. We can't get rid of it. We wouldn't want to. And literally, it is there to save our lives. And I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute and show you how that works. But there's that other type of stress, that one that's debilitating, that one that gives us all the physical and mental and emotional strife and all those symptoms, that kind of unwanted stress that maybe some of you might be experiencing and suffering from in your lives over these last weeks and months. So the names of these are positive and negative. I call it P stress and N stress, positive stress and negative stress. Now, if you were out in Southeast Asia and you're on a trekking holiday, and you're going down the path, and you and your group, and all of a sudden you go around the bend in the path, and about 100 meters down the road, down that pathway, is some lion standing there and looks up at you. Maybe you're in Australia, and you're in the outback, and you're walking along, doing some hiking or something, and you find one of those poisonous snakes just kind of jumps up in front of you. Maybe you're, I'm Canadian. Maybe you're out in the Canadian Rockies, and you're traipsing through the Canadian Rockies, hiking along, and one of the bears that they have out there, jumps out in front of you. What happens? Well, that's when that positive stress, that's when that built-in stress mechanism that we have kicks in, and it's going to provide you the opportunity to do one of three things: fight, flight, or freeze. And what that mechanism does is it kicks off the hormones and the chemicals in our brain, the adrenaline, the cortisol. It starts to speed up the rush of the blood through our veins and our arteries. It puts enlarges the muscles in case we decide we want to run or we want to fight. It does all kinds of things for us that will allow us to either run like heck, if that's what we want to do, stay and fight and give us that extra adrenaline rush, that extra amount of strength that we sometimes feel when we have that adrenaline rush, or it's going to allow us to think very clearly and be very focused and learn, if we want to freeze, how we're going to blend into the environment and just kind of sink away so the danger goes away. These are the three mechanisms that we have inside of us that comes from having positive stress. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about how we understand stress now, and I put together something called the 3 M's of understanding stress. So this is how it all works out. See, stress is not medical. Now, I know that, as I said earlier, when we have a lot of that stress, that negative stress now, we get a lot of symptoms, IBS, we get headaches, we can't sleep at night, we get migraines, we have all kinds of physical, mental, and emotional imbalances and maladies that occur. But stress isn't medical. All those things are the symptoms of the stress. And the unfortunate part is, I must say, is that the system seems more designed to zero in and focus on those symptoms rather than the cause. And the unfortunate part is that when those symptoms dissipate through medication, through other means that are available, that stress comes back and the symptoms come back. What we want to do is we really want to affect the cause of the stress, and once we've done that, and once the symptoms are gone, they're gone forever. So stress is not medical. Stress is not mental either. Now I know, I hear you saying right now, you're thinking, you're on this call and you're thinking, but hang on a minute, isn't having lower levels of stress, isn't that good mental well-being, and isn't that something to be admired? Well, you're right, it is. But why I say that stress is not mental is because we're not born with unusually high, elevated levels of stress. We're not born that way. So stress is not mental. So then, what is stress then? And where does it come from? There is only one cause of stress, and there's only one solution. And the same word for both of those. And that word is you, Y-O-U. You're the cause of your stress, and you're the solution to your stress. And that's why it's all about management. That's why we call it stress management, because when you learn how to manage your stress that you have caused for yourself, and I'm going to explain that now, then you're in a position to bring that stress level down, manage that lower stress level, going forward. So let's take a look at that. This cube here represents you, and you can see that there are 6 slices to the cube. So let's find out about you, since I'm accusing you of being the one who's responsible for your stress and telling you that you are responsible you are the solution to your stress. You're responsible for bringing that stress level down. So who are you? Well, there are only 3 things that we do as humans. There are only 3. Let me take that away from it. There are only 3 things we do as humans. There's only 3. If you're doing a 4th thing, well, then put your hand up and identify yourself as an alien. You're from another planet, which means you could probably run this planet. Look, I'll tell you what. I'll be your manager. We're going to make millions. I'm sure of it. But I'm just going to stick my neck out here this afternoon. I'm just going to put my head on the block. I'm just going to presume that nobody's about to identify themselves as an alien, and that we're all on this call this afternoon. We're all human. And if that's the case, then here are the three things that you do as a human. You think, you feel, and you behave. And that's it. Now, behavior can be subdivided into actions and reactions, but that's it. So what I've just done is I brought 7.5 billion people down to 3 fingers. If you're looking in the camera, you can see 3 fingers on my right hand. And that's it. That's all we do is we think, we feel, and we behave. That's the genesis of being a human being. Now, what are these other 3 parts of the cube stand for? Well, that's what we have on Earth, on this planet. We have people, places, and things. That's pretty much it. People, places, and stuff. That's pretty much planet Earth. Yeah? So here's how it works. It's how you think, feel, and behave in relation to people, places, and things that dictate the quality of your life, that dictate the level of your stress. I'll just repeat that just so you can let that marinate for a minute. It's how we think, feel, and behave in relation to people, places, and things that dictate the quality of our life, that dictate the level of our stress. And when I talk about people, then the first person that ought to be on that list that comes to mind would be you. So how do you think, feel in relation to yourself? How do you think, feel, and behave in relation to your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors? It's kind of a loop in a way, but you're the first person that comes at the top of the list. That's why I know that how this works is that you're responsible for your stress, and only you can be the solution to that stress. So let's take a little bit further down the road. Now, there are some negative stressors, and there are 4. Back in the 1920s, I guess. So yeah, about 100 years ago. How about that? I've been saying this for a long time. Now it's 100 years. How about that? So back about 100 years ago, then an Austrian gentleman, Dr. Hans Selye, who just coincidentally happened to immigrate to Canada, but he came from Austria. When he studied all of this, he was able to whittle it down to 4 stressors. And nobody's been able to come up with a better idea since, so I think that he nailed it back in the 1920s. Let's look at stressor number 1. It's time. So when you're constantly worried about time in relation to a task that you need to perform, then you suffer from time stressing. This is a stressor. How you can help to solve this problem and this situation, it comes from planning, to become a better planner, to be able to utilize all the planning tools that we have at our disposal now. Our diaries and our things to do, and our keeping our diaries up to date, and focusing on planning things and having channels organized in such a way so you're not stressed out about everything coming in on top of you at once, right? Planning is the answer to a time stressor. Anticipation. Now, if you're constantly worried about future events, then anticipation stressors are the little gremlins that are rushing around inside of your mind, causing your stress. And these are people who are constantly worried about future events. And while there may be, extremes and gray area in between, we find that predominantly the majority of people who suffer from anticipation stress or anticipatory stress are people who anticipate failure at best and disaster at worst. And I guess the best way to be able to combat this, or to be able to organize yourself to bring your stress levels down if you suffer from anticipatory stress, would be to analyze all the possible outcomes, make contingency plans, have a plan B, have a plan C, maybe even a plan D. Just have a clear image in your head about what positive moves you could make going forward. And when you do this, then you create confidence in yourself, and when the confidence goes up, then the stress comes down. It's really just that simple. Going the wrong way. The third negative stressor then is situation. So here's an example of situation stress where you might be feeling uncomfortable over and maybe that you have no control over a particular situation, whereby you might fear that you're going to make a mistake or look foolish or maybe embarrass yourself in front of in front of your friends or your colleagues or your relatives or even strangers. And I've talked to a lot of people over the life of my career, and funnily enough, they seem to stress out more about what strangers are going to think about them than the people that they know and the people that depend on them and the people that they depend on. Funnily enough, anyways, that's another conversation. But if you want to quickly learn how to combat your situational stress, then it's just a matter of boning up on your people skills and your thinking and your behaving. So if you can become more aware of your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in relation to the reactions of the people, places, and how people, places, and things are going to react, then you're going to be able to bring that stress level down. And again, you're going to be able to manage that going forward. Just become more self-aware, confidence goes up, stress comes down. The last of the negative stressors is encounter. Now, this is a particular interesting one because this type of end stressor looks for people who worry about interacting with certain individuals or maybe groups of people. And this kind of contact overload is what I call it, can be countered simply just, again, by working on your people skills, right? Improving your ability to engage and work with others. One of the things that you can do is to look for ways to increase the level, develop a greater emotional intelligence. We find that works extremely well for this kind of an end stressor. So there are the 4 end stressors this afternoon. Just a quick review of them and a quick tip and technique for each one of them that will help you be able to deal with those should you be suffering from one, some, or all of them at any given time. That's how you can get through. Now, we're getting close to the end of the presentation here. I'm going through quite quickly, but I'm going to stop here and I'm going to tell you a story. And I hope that some of you are going to be able to relate to this. So what happens is that, you have to believe that over the almost 30 years that I've been doing this in at least 3-4 parts of the world for many years, I've spoken to just literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I can't remember all of them, but I remember some of the bright ones and some of the not so bright ones and some of the ones who are pretty stressed out and pretty down. And I can remember a lot of the successes that we've had over the years. I can see faces, but I can't remember all their names. But I got client files here going back at least a decade. And when I talk to these people, one of the questions that I often ask them is, what is their idea of wealth? And I've heard some really great answers over the years that I've been doing this. Now, there are more ways to wealth. There are more kinds of wealth than just financial. You can be financially wealthy, of course, but you can be wealthy in many other ways as well. But let's talk about financial wealth, because the common currency is something that we all have in common. So when I talk to people about financial wealth, some people tell me, I say, well, what's your idea of being, wealthy financially? So I've heard 100 grand, million, 10 million, more than 10 million. Everybody's got their own level of what they feel comfortable calling financial wealth. And that's cool, no shame, no blame. But what I find is that when I examine these same people, what I find is that while they're talking and dreaming and thinking about being wealthy, they seem to be spending their day, every day, going out to work, working really hard, trying not to be poor. And these two things are not, as they say, two phrases that mean the same thing. They're in fact diametrically opposed to each other. And this used to confound me. I mean, it still does to a certain, I understand. I'm going to explain it to you now. I still find it a bit confounding because I guess I just wish it was different for a lot of people. But let me see if I can bring you some value and lend something to this afternoon for those of you who are on the call and those of you who might be listening to the recorded version, sometime later. Now, let's just suppose I'm on a beach. So I got this picture of the beach up here. Well, suppose I'm on the beach. I'm down here at this end of the beach. I'm down here by myself. I'm lonely, a little breeze down here, but chilly. I don't want to be down here. I'm not happy. I want to be up at that end of the beach. I see my mates have just come down there. Maybe there's a cold drink stand down there. I don't know. But for whatever reason, I want to get up to that end of the beach. If I was going to do this the way that I've been programmed to think, feel, and behave, right, in my formative years, right, by society and by my leadership and by authority and by everything else, then this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take off from this end of the beach and I'm going to start, maybe walking fast or start jogging, and I'm going to start running away from being down here because down here is where I don't want to be. I'm down here and I'm lonely and it's kind of chilly, it's cold, and I'm just not having a good time, miserable. So I'm going to try and get away from it. So I'm running away. And, overnight, as you would on a beach, the tide comes in and out, and it left some driftwood. So I'm running away, and all of a sudden I trip over the driftwood. I fall down, I scratch up my leg a little bit, and I pick myself up and brush myself off and maybe look around, see if anybody saw me. But anyways, I'm not worried about that. Anyways, so I keep going. Now, and I'm still thinking, geez, I want to get away from it. I don't like being down here. I don't like this, right? This is negative for me. This is bad. So I want to get up there where my friends are, where the cold drinks are. So I pick myself up and I start jogging along, start running along, trying to get away from where I want, because up there is where I want to go. Well, earlier in the day, the mothers were down with the little children with the plastic pails and shovels and all that, right? They've all gone home now, and the water's come in and washed all the sand castles away, and that's probably not a bad thing. But if you live on a beach, but there's still a hole in the wet sand. So I'm running. Of course, the next thing I do is I put my foot in the hole, and of course, I splat myself. I'm, on my backside all over the beach again, twisted up my ankle. I'm not doing very well. Let's leave the story there for a moment. See, here's what's happening. Just like the people who want to be wealthy, but I find are working hard every day trying not to be poor, here's what has happened with poor me, right? See, I'm spending all of my time focused on running away from the negative that I don't want. And so in this particular case, if I was literally, if I was to change my focus and focus on the positive I do want, where I want to go, then I would be better able to see the obstacles that invariably are going to appear. I think, I've just described how life is a beach, right? So here's the message from this, right? Examine how you think, feel, and behave in relation to people, yourself and others, people, places, and things. Are you spending a lot of time focused on running away from the negative, trying to move away from, trying to get away from the negative that you don't want? Or are you more focused on running toward the positive that you do want? This is a question that you can answer for yourself. I'm not calling anybody out. Don't want anybody to raise their hand. This is a rhetorical question. But think about this. Examine how you approach what your process is, how you're approaching things in your life, how you're approaching your relationships, how you're approaching your responsibilities, how you're approaching your tasks, how you're approaching your personal life, your professional life, and everything in between and on the side. Are you spending more time thinking about and focusing on trying to get away from being poor, trying to get away from the negative that you don't want? Or are you focused on the positive that you do want? See, here's the thing, and this is a little extra here I can throw in here quickly this afternoon. If I'm running away from, the farther I get away from where I was, so I'm now about maybe halfway down the beach, and there's some other people around and things are happening, and I don't really know them, but they seem friendly. They've beckoned me over, for a cold drink and maybe a chicken wing or whatever they've got. There's some music playing. There seems to be a party going on. My motivation to keep going starts to go down because the farther I get away from what I don't want, then my motivation to keep going. But if I'm focused on what I do want, my motivation will remain high until and get even higher the closer I get to my goal. And again, so this is a little tip and technique as to how you want to keep your motivation up, right? By constant. And here's the last thing I'll say about this. So if I focus on what I do want, I still get the other thing. I still get farther away from the negative I don't want. I'm just not focused on it anymore. So it's still okay. So I want to focus on the positive I do want, not the negative that I don't want. And there's a bit of a difference in the two of those things. And I hope I've been able to explain that to your satisfaction this afternoon. And when you do that, then you're not going to be as stressed because you're not going to be tripping over things. You're not going to say, oh, I don't know what's coming next, because you'll be able to see what's coming next to a large part. Your motivation to keep going is going to be high. So stress comes down. Let's go to this one. Last one for the afternoon. A lot of people that I talk to, not just my clients in my private practice, but even people that come to my workshops and seminars, they often come up and they tell me that they're not sleeping well for a myriad of reasons, all of which can be brought down into one word, which is stress. They're stressed out, right? So they're not sleeping. Now, if you're somebody who has what I call sleep issues, you fall into one of three categories. Category one, you are somebody who, when you lay down to go to sleep at night, you've got your duvet up and your eyes are closed. It helps if you're trying to go to sleep if you close your eyes. That's key to that one. But you're laying there and you find it difficult, to fall off to sleep. But once you do fall off to sleep eventually, then you sleep through the night, you wake up in the morning and off you go until the next night, and you come back to bed and you find it difficult to fall off to sleep. Category two, people who don't have any problem falling off to sleep, but they wake up in the middle of the night and they have difficulty getting back to sleep. And, they're thinking about all their stuff and they're meeting tomorrow and the next day. And if he says this and I got to say that, and she says that, and I got to do that, and what's going to happen with this and this, and, all this. And I call it mind travel. So they're mind traveling, all right, for anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour or more, hour and a half. Some people have told me they've been laying until they finally are exhausted and they end up going to sleep by hook or by crook. And they wake up, when the alarm goes off, and they get up and they start their day, now having lost an hour and a half of sleep. So this is not good. And then there's category three. And category three are people who are both category one and category two combined. So people who find it difficult to fall off to sleep at night and wake up in the middle of the night, and then they do their mind travel and waste a lot of time that they could be sleeping and getting needed rest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you now 2 techniques. I can't tell by looking at you, if I could see all of you, I can't tell by looking at somebody which one is going to work, but I guarantee that one of them will work. Now, if you've got a pen and a piece of paper handy, I want you to write this number down. 0775. Yep. Okay. Paul wants me to wait until he gets his paper. When the chief says wait, we wait. 0775. Well, I know my place, Paul. 0775 971 6374. That's my mobile number. And I don't mind giving it out because I'm going to tell you this, right? I'm going to explain these 2 techniques to you. If you try them and you do them properly, and I'm going to take a few moments to go through this, and they don't work, then you call me. I need to know about it. Because when you call me, you're without you knowing it, I'm going to give the plot away right now, without knowing it, you will have identified yourself as somebody from another planet. And that's why I say that's when I'm not going to be upset. We're going to hook up. We're going to make millions together because you're going to run this one. But I know that if what I'm about to tell you now, you do this correctly, it cannot not work. And I don't have the time this afternoon, unfortunately, to be able to tell you all the mechanisms and all the machinery going on in your between the configuration between your mind and your brain that makes it impossible for one of these 2 techniques not to work. So here are the 2 techniques. Now, they'll both work, but for some of you, one will work better than the other, which of course naturally then is the one you're going to use, and you'll forget about the other one. But they both will work. So here's the first one. So you're laying in your bed, you got your duvet up, again, you got your eyes closed, helps if you want to go to sleep, huh? And what I want you to do is I want you to feel your toes. Now I don't mean reach down underneath the duvet with your hand, and tickle your feet. I don't mean that. I mean like just become aware of, feel your toes like in your mind, become aware of your toes. Yeah? And so and so here would be your toes, yeah? So just become aware of your toes. And then on both feet. And then whatever it means to you to do this, just relax your toes. Just relax your toes. And then when you've been able to relax your toes, then you go to the balls of your feet and relax the balls of your feet. Now there's a couple of caveats in here. I'm going to explain them when I get to the end. When you have relaxed the balls of your feet, then you go to the arch, then you go to the heel. Now, the heel's a bit special because when we think in our mind of our heel relaxing, because it's got all that big, thick tissue, on it, we think of it maybe like getting heavy somehow, and we get that sensation that maybe it's going to sink down into the mattress a little bit, maybe make that little bit of an indentation in the mattress, which is perfectly fine. And then when you've done your heel, then you go to your ankle, then you go to your shin. When you've done your shin, then you go to your calf. Yeah? Now again, your calf is a bit special, similar to your heel. When your calf is tight and constricted, right? When you relax that calf muscle, you get that sensation that it gets bigger, fatter. You associate that maybe with getting a bit heavier. So again, it's going to maybe make that little indentation in the mattress. Maybe your leg will sink down, start to relax a bit more. Then you go to your knee, then the top of the front of your leg, and then the back of your thigh, and carry on. Now, here are the caveats. Of course, while you're doing this, you're going to have drifted off into thinking about your thoughts and all the stuff that you're thinking, the meetings and the deadlines and the money and and then this and all the things that you might think about. Yeah? Good. And you won't know you've done it until after you've been doing it for a while. You think, oh, hang on a minute. What have I been doing? I've been thinking about all this stuff. God, how long has it been? Probably like what? 20 minutes, half an hour, 15 minutes, however long it's been. Right? Don't worry. Don't beat yourself up. If you do, use a feather because it doesn't hurt as much. Right? But just come back down and say, okay, listen, what was this thing this guy Ches was telling me about? Okay, good, right. Now, if you can remember where you left off, carry on. If you can't, you have to go back and start with your toes. And then you'll go along and you'll get along. Maybe you'll get to the balls of your feet. You might even get to your heel. I don't know. You'll get somewhere along there and you'll realize, oh my God, I drifted off thinking about all my stuff again. Let me see. Let me give it. Great. So then if not, go back to start at your toes. Now, if you do this right, I guarantee you, and that's why I give you my number, I guarantee you, if you do this correctly, as I've explained it, you'll never, ever, 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 ever get past your hips before you will be asleep. Yeah? Technique number 2. So try that one first. For some of you, that will work. Well, I want you all to try both of them, and you'll realize that some will say, hey, the first one, some will say, hey, the second one, and that's what it'll be. That's fine. It's not a problem. Here's the second technique. So again, you're laying in your bed, you got your duvet up, your eyes are closed, you're there trying to get to sleep. On your next in-breath, say 100. On your out-breath, I know it sounds a bit corny, but I'm telling you, I've been telling this, look, I've been explaining this to people all over the world for almost 20 years now. It works. Just work with me on this one. It sounds a little bit cheesy, but it works. On the out-breath, you say the word sleep. Next in-breath, 99, sleep. 98, sleep. 97, sleep, and so forth. Yeah? All right, now, a couple of things. First of all, it's important. I mean, it's critical. It won't work otherwise. Remember, please, that the number is always on the in-breath. The word sleep is always on the out-breath. You get those, and you call me, I ask you, and you tell me that's the one you're doing, that's the first question I'm going to ask you, right? Is the number on the in-breath or the out-breath, right? It's got to be on the in-breath. And the word sleep is always on the out-breath, right? While we're on this thing about calling me, listen, I leave my, as probably a lot of us do, but I have to leave my, for reasons I can't go into today, but I leave my phone on every night. My phone hasn't been turned off. My phone has only been turned off once since I've had a mobile phone, right? I leave my phone on at night. And it does ring from time to time, but in 20 years, it's never rung. My phone has never rung. Somebody telling me that this didn't work. Guarantee this will work. Now, here's the thing. Again, the caveat. As you're going through, when your resting breathing rate, right, is going to be a lot slower. I mean, I'm just doing this way, for the sake of, demonstration. If you're laying there counting and breathing this fast, you're probably going to hyperventilate, which means you're going to have more problems than trying to get to sleep. That'll be the least of your worries. So, our resting breathing rate is such. When we breathe in, we actually breathe out quite quickly. I would have thought until I learned otherwise that it was different. But when we breathe out, it can be a while before we breathe back in again, funnily enough. But when you breathe in, 100. Breathe out, the word sleep. When you breathe in, the number 99, sleep. Now, what's going to happen as you go down again, you're going to find, I started thinking about all my stuff and all the meetings and all the stuff I got to think about, all my worries and troubles and all the rest of it. What's this thing Ches was telling me about? Right, good. Just come back down to it. Again, no shame, no blame. If you can remember the last number, just pick up the next number. If not, you got to go back and start at 100. Okay? And you'll do this, and one of these two techniques will work. And what's going to happen over a period of time, I'll just give you a little shot into the future, what success looks like. Over a period of time, for some people it's weeks, some people it's months, some people I've talked to, it's taken them 1.5 years to 2 years to get to this point. But what happens is two things. When you go out there and do your mind travel, you won't go out for as long. So if you were going out for like 45 or 50 minutes before, eventually you'll be going out for 35 minutes, then maybe 20 minutes, and then maybe 12 or 15 minutes, and then 5 minutes, that kind of thing. So the time limit that you're going to be going out and doing the mind traveling is going to lessen, which means you'll have more opportunity to have more sleep, than mind travel, one, and the amount of times that you go out, the frequency that you do the mind traveling. Oh God, I've done this like 3 times before you finally go to sleep. Well, now at some point in time, you'll only do it twice. Then you only do it once. And that once will get shorter and shorter and shorter, you see, over a period of time. All right? This is how this works. So these are two techniques that I can give you that help you get a better night's sleep, that will help you then realize a lower stress level, have you more focused and more alert for the things that you want to do during the day, so you'd be better able to manage your life, your career, and manage your stress. Running down the beach, remember I said, if you're focused on the difference between focusing on what you do want as opposed to focusing on what you don't want. Focus on the positive, not the negative, for all the reasons I've mentioned. Now, there's a couple of courses of action. If you're interested to know a little bit more about how we might be able to engage, we have 3 options available. One, I can do a series of 30 to 45 minute, just lunch and learn, just out of the box techniques, similar to what I've just been telling you about running down the beach and how to get a good night's sleep and the 4 end stressors. So I've got dozens of these things that I can tell you just, quickly how to get organized. Then if you want option 2, something a bit more, we dig deeper. We talk about the goals and the barriers, the benefits, right? I have a series of half day, which are basically 3-hour workshops, which I can put on for you and or your staff. And of course, if you want a full consultancy program, where I run a stress risk assessment, I come in and study your sickness data, your leave data, look for patterns, because there are patterns that pop right up once I start looking at it. Maybe do some focus groups if that's something that's called for. Certainly the training workshops that are involved in all of this. And just while I'm on that, just for a quick moment, I've got some good news to report, actually. So over the years that I've been doing this, I've come to realize that people stress, not the 4 stressors, that's something completely different, but people's stress seems to reside in one of, or some of, or all of 4 high frequency categories. And those categories are communication, motivation, relationships, and planning. So I put together a program that I call CARE, C-A-R-E. That's constructive communication, achievement motivation, relationship development, and effective planning. And I find that people's stress resides in those 4 categories. So of course, what I want to do is the solution then, showing you, because you are the solution to your own stress, showing you how to organize yourself in each of those 4 categories then is what brings your stress level down. I've just submitted that program to an awarding body here in the UK, and I've been told I'm receiving a letter back in the next couple of days where they're indicating that they're going to award this program 22 CPD points. So that's 5.5 hours of training for each one of those 4 categories. So call it 6 with the break. So I think that's pretty exciting news. So if somebody wants the option 2, or certainly the training workshops come with option 3, that's what's available to you too. And if you need CPD points, you can fill them up, the Stress Master. Now, the goals of this presentation. I told you when we started that my intent was to tell you what stress is. I think I've done that. I hope I have. I hope that I've been able to show you that the role stress can play in your success. And of course, I've given you some tips and techniques along the way that will allow you to be able to manage your stress, control your stress at a lower level. So it's all an intellectual chit chat unless you actually implement some of these things, because this is really what it is, right? Who you want to be is what you do, and that's how it works. Now, that's the end of the presentation. What I want to do is I want to come back here. I'm going to stop screen sharing now, if I'm allowed to, Mr. President. I'm going to come back here and, right.
There is one question that's come up, and I'll ask that question to you, Ches, is what role does meditation and positive visualization play in stress management? And what simple exercises can you recommend? And finally, what does physical exercise play in dissipating stress?
I thought you said that was one question. That's about half a dozen in there, and I've got a good answer for most of them. Just start with the first question again. Meditation and
what role does meditation and positive visualization play in stress?
Good. Stop there. Meditation. Well, it depends on what kind of meditation you're doing. There's all kinds of meditation. One of when I showed you the thing about how to relax your feet and your ankles and your legs, that's what we call PMR, progressive muscle relaxation. You can do that in many forms of meditation. Actually, meditation is something that certainly has an effect on the symptoms of stress, and over a long period of time can have an effect on you, which then will help you be able to stay at that lower sort of relaxed level, then that will allow you to see more, be more, have more, to be able to manage that lower level of stress that you've achieved. When we talk about positive visualization, I mean, I don't want to keep people too much over time, but I've got a whole seminar on this. Let me see if I can sum this up in about 30 seconds. Visualization is not what it is. It's called imagery, right? Think of it as a pie. And this pie has 5 pieces. Visualization is only one piece of that pie. So if all you're doing is visualization, you're missing out on 80% of what you can have available to you that you're trying to achieve through doing visualization. So let's call it imagery, right? Let's be professional, call it imagery. The other pieces of the pie, when you're trying to create that vision of what you want for yourself, bring in the sounds, bring in the smells, any sense, SCENTS, smells, bring in the physical, bring in anything that what in the experience that you're now imaging, because we're going to be professional about it, that you're imaging, what are the physical sensations? And then the last piece of the pie would be the emotion. So when you've reached that goal, when you've crossed that finish line and you've succeeded in whatever it is you're doing, what's that going to feel like? What's that adrenaline rush? What's that great, eureka moment? Bring that into it. And the other thing I can tell you is that when you're doing imagery, in the visualization part, you normally would look at yourself as if you're sort of like almost having an OBE, an out-of-body experience, that you see yourself. The sooner you can come down into your body and go through whatever experience you're trying to visualize, you're trying to imagine, right? The sooner that you can come down and do all that, have all that experience as if you're seeing it out of your own eyes rather than watching you do it from above, you're going to have more real experience. And the realer the experience can be, which is why you want to bring in those other 4 pieces of the pie, the more real the experience can be, the better experience you're going to have, and the more ability you're going to have to actually realize and have that, what you're imaging, become manifest. I'm going to leave that one there. Paul, what was the next question?
And the last question I'm going to give you first, because I think it fits in, is what role does physical exercise play in dissipating stress?
Well, lots of people say, and I would say from my own experiences, because I like to do a lot of, tramping in the gym off and on in my life since '96. I try to keep fit as I can. I find people report that, when you exercise, of course, people who run, let's talk about the marathon runners, long distance runners, they get that rush in their head, they get that feeling because the chemicals start to fire off, all those feel good chemicals, the serotonin, the dopamine, all those. So it has a feel good effect. And that feel good effect allows us to act, to think, feel, and behave with less stress. but you can't just spend your whole life working out, training, and running or doing physical exercise. You still have to do some of these other things that will allow you to manage, address the four stressors, those four end stressors, that will be allowed to bring your stress level down on a permanent basis and be able to manage that. But physical activity does have a role to play, temporarily as it may be, in helping you to alleviate high stress levels through the chemical functions in your brain to bring the feeling of that stress back down to a manageable level. I hope that makes sense. What was the next question?
The last question then is, apart from going to BITA functions and enjoying yourself, what simple exercises would you recommend to abate stress?
Go to more BITA functions. And park your car a little farther away. Well, not these days. Park your laptop a little farther away and walk a little farther to the meeting. You'll get more exercise. Paul, that was your question, wasn't it? You? Yeah. That's all I can tell you this afternoon. Look at that. We've ended on time. How great is that?
Okay, well, is that it? Do I wrap it up there, Ches, or is there more that you want to add to this?
I don't think so. Look. There's just one more thing. If I could just go back to screen share for just a moment. Maybe there's this one here. As you asked, thank you for asking. Look. These are 3 books that I've been involved in. The first book, Choice and Change, I wrote that back in 2014. When it was uploaded to the internet, Amazon worldwide, it became an international bestseller, I think in about 3 days. A couple years later, I was a contributor in this book, Fit for Purpose Leadership #3. It also went on to become an international bestseller. Probably not for the chapter I put in, but there were a lot of great minds that put stuff in there that I think compelled it to the top of the charts. This book over here, how to get control of your stress instead of stress controlling you. That's my latest book. We got that finished in March. It came out just at the end of March, the beginning of April. Now, it's not for sale yet, which means that you can pick it up for free. If you go to my website, thestressmaster.com/sign-up, sign-up, you'll be able to download it for free. Free is not forever. I am having it transferred into a Mobi platform, which is what they need to have it on Amazon. Likely when I get it up on Amazon before Christmas, I'll take it off the website. But for now, it's free. It's about 66 pages, packed full of ideas, tips, and techniques, the same as I've explained to you this afternoon. There's a case study in there for people who like a case study. That will explain a lot of what I've been on about this afternoon and a little bit deeper as well. So if you want to find a little bit more about me and how to control your stress, that's the book that you can get while it's still free. Thank you, Paul, for that. I appreciate that.
No problem, and thank you, Ches. I would also remind people that we have launched our website, bita.ie, our new website. So it is well worth everybody de-stressing themselves now and going to BITA's new website and seeing the wonderful things that are in addition to your membership. There's many, many things in it now, from resources to training hub to procurement hub. And indeed, many, many other things, galleries, the magazines, etc., etc. It is fantastic. So for those of you who have joined us, please do visit the website, and we will include things like this seminar on the online platform as well. So back over to you, Laura, and thank you very much for joining us.
If I could just say one thing about that, I might be stealing Laura's thunder, I don't know, but if I could just say, I myself have registered myself into the 3 seminar workshops that Diane and Laura are going to be hosting, I think starting next week on the 18th. I think it's the first one. If it's not the first one, it's one of them anyways. There are 3 webinars coming up that are going to teach me how to take advantage as a member of BITA on the fantastic website that has now gone online. I'm going to be in that, and I hope that I'll meet some of you in there as well.